So a new foundering car, and today it is a special one because the Swift Sport Hybrid has been lowered and it now has a HKS Hi-Power Spec-L exhaust system. And this is my first impression of that. So I'm not going to ride it to its capacities, but just get an initial impression of what the changes are. So let's start the engine. So that's the cold start. Also let's get the seats a little bit back again, and also this mirrors. So you can enjoy also these things. Let's see the mirrors. My wife drove it, so now I try to get it back to my settings again. So let's see also how the suspension feels. It's now also on 16-inch winter steelies, no, not steelies, winter rims, HKS Street Rally. I made a video about those as well. So that should give a little bit more supple ride than on the original 17-inch tires. So it could be that in the future ride will be a bit stiffer still. Initial impressions about the ride stiffness on very good roads is no problem at all. I must say that I also hear the exhaust a lot better even when driving this slow. Now I took a harder bump, and that was transitioned quite harsh as compared to the stock suspension. So when you get a new springs, they have to be dialed in, and after a while normally they get a little bit more dense. So this is the first speed bump that is now coming up. This a lot stiffer. Maybe. It's not that it's grinding my spine, but it is stiffer. Another speed bump. Speed bump down. Now you also will hear the exhaust a little bit better as an in-car experience in high definition. I will shift at 2500 RPM because the engine is still cold. Of course, downshifting to third for a roundabout, downshifting to 2, and now first because the car in front of me was just blocking it. Therefore the anti-collision warnings went off. Shifting to second. It appears that the cornering is a little bit flatter, of course, because the center of gravity is lower, but it also feels like that. Now on fifth, sixth. Noise of the exhaust is there. Of course, it's not unbearable, I must say. Also, the exhaust needs to be dialed in, so normally the exhaust loudness increases a little bit in time. So please take this into consideration. This is the initial sound that it makes, but in time this will change a little bit. Fifth again. Sixth. sometimes also exhaust systems get a little bit of a drone. I haven't found that drone so far. Also, I must mention that normally you have a cover to cover your boots, but it's now that cover has been removed. And why is that? Because I had to take this HKS exhaust system to the garage, and that yeah, of course it has a lot of room that it occupies, and that can alter of course the sound as well. So with that in place, it might be that the sounds would be less pronounced. So I just try to give you the complete experience here, and also tell you all those things that could be of relevance to you. And this video in high definition is there for you to get an impression of how the HKS system sounds, but also gives you a little bit of impression about the suspension that is now in place. Also, of course, you hear nothing now because this car is equipped with a start-stop system, which implies once the car stops, also the engine stops. And once you press the clutch in, also the engine will automatically start. So now I press the clutch, you hear it start. If it's warmed up, the sound becomes a lot less pronounced. So it can also be a benefit if you have to do longer trips, for example highway speed. If then the sound decreases, this is a good thing in my opinion, because otherwise you get an exposure of the sound all the time, and the sound on the highway is normally quite monotonous because you're at a certain speed, instead of shifting it up like when we do now in roadside roads, shifting back to third again for around about a second. It gives you a lot more variation. I like the directness that this suspension gives you in the feeling department. I think it might be faster, but also this subjective feeling that you ride a stiffer ride that gives you a more direct feel, and that even if the car is not faster, it feels faster because you feel it's so connected to the road. Another thing to mention, that if you compare the Z-Sport to its competitors as a stock car, of course it has a sport suspension, but compared to the competitors, the suspension of the Swift is mightily forgiving, so quite soft. And how is that possible? Because it drives really nice and has high cornering speed, because the weight is so low that you can get away with a lot softer springs and still have a very good connection to the roads. Some dirt on the road here. I think it was a truck or a farmer that has some clay or something else, some manure, and it just spilled a little bit over there on the road. So what I was saying is that the stock suspension is really forgiving, and that gives you an opportunity of course to alter it without making it unforgiving, so to say. That's a good thing to take into consideration, because if you have a car that has a very stiff suspension, suspension to begin with, and you stiffen it up even more, oftentimes the ride can be or become unbearable. Also, what I mentioned, that the springs also need time to dial in to get to their real stiffness. And with the Swissport you have a little bit more room, in my opinion, to work with, because you start quite soft because of the low weight. So for me, lowering springs, the most important part is that you get a little bit lower center of gravity. Also because of the soft springs, the Swissport reacted a little bit under, for example, braking, that you have a nosedive but also accelerating, that it would move the hood a little bit upwards on the acceleration, especially the first few gears, and then you will lose traction because the traction is on the front of the tires. So if you remove part of this play, so to say, I think you can gain quite a lot benefits. That's what I attempted here. Another benefit, of course, with the lower center of gravity is that you have, of course, a better road holding in the bends, because the center of gravity is lower. You also have less play in the chassis, so loss of how do you say this, traction. But also you have a benefit when you're driving high speed routes, for example on the highway, because your coefficient of drag, the wind resistance, is also reduced. Then the logic about this exhaust system, it should help you gain about 9 horsepower, which is nice, of course, but those 9 horsepower are quite costly. It also gives you the benefit of an additional sound. The Swissport as stock is not that really inspiring on the exhaust sounds. It does look nice with those two sports exhausts protruding under the bonnet, under the back bumper, but the sound was a little bit muted, also because the Swissport Hybrid comes with the GPF. This is even more muted as compared to the non-GPF, just 1.4 turbo, the non-hybrid. And another thing is that you could lose some weight. So this exhaust is 6.6 kilograms lighter as compared to the stock one, which is, in my opinion, a good gain. So many times you see a sports exhaust that will remove 1 or 2 kilograms, but this HKS one is, I studied them all, is one of the best, if not the best, especially if you also consider the pricing that it involves. So with this you get a back new exhaust, and they do this by of course using some titanium at the tips, but the most important part is that they use stainless steel, but a very lightweight version of that, because they have a construct that they can keep the millimeters needed of the stainless steel very thin and still have this good system in place. So the benefit is of a stainless steel system is that you have something that allows you to go also thinner. And why is that? Because normally rust can get holes in your exhaust system, so normally this will take some time, and then you need a certain amount of material there so that it will not rust through that easily. And with the stainless steel system you don't have that rust problem that much, so you can do a little bit more on the weight reduction. Well, I hope you liked this video. Also, all the information I tried to put into this. I will do some more roundabouts and then finish up. For me personally, I think this is a good improvement. If you want to compare to stages, this, in my opinion, should be stage 0.5. So not even stage 1, which a normal ECU tune would be, but just gives your car a lot more benefits in handling because you have some weight reduction and also lowering the center of gravity, and also you get a lot of benefits in appearance. So of course the lower stand gives your car a lot more sporting look, that's one. And the other thing is with this exhaust system also the sound is changing a lot. So for your driver experience this could do even more than a chip tune. But if you look for the price performance gain, the chip tune would be far better in my opinion. Also for your driver experience, even if you don't push your car, you still have this stiffer suspension to work with, less body roll, and you still have this exhaust note that just accompanies it, which gives you completely different experience, or add to the experience that the Swift Sport Hybrid already has. Hope you like this. Have a great day. I will now close this video and wish you all a lot of pleasure with your own car, or the car that you are attempting to buy or working towards. Always keep grinding, boys. Foundering Car out.